Well, good morning, everybody. It's Tuesday, the 19th of May. Hopefully, this finds you all doing really, really well. And so, I come to you this morning, a little bit humbled, a little bit perplexed, to be totally honest, in terms of just where we find ourselves as a country. And what am I getting at is pretty much in line with what Barry was saying yesterday. But when we just kind of see how human nature has become so different, and we kind of living in this time where we had this normality where we knew what was normal, and that all got thrown and literally put on its head. And that may be a weird way of saying it for some people, but when you think about it, things have been put on their head. Nothing is normal at the moment. Just think about that. 50 odd days ago, we went into lockdown. We're still living in this time of actual uncertainty. This time of uncertainty as to what is happening, this time of uncertainty, not only for, what is happening like in our country, but for many of us, a time of uncertainty that is happening in our own lives because we don't know what is going on. And we kind of realize that yes, we've got to live by faith, but if you're anything like me, it's like I like to have a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel and kind of know what's going on. But that's just not what is happening. There's also, we'll see ministers come onto TV and say one thing and then something else happens, all that kind of stuff. There seems to be a lot of uncertainty around us all the time. And I think all of us are living in that uncertainty. And the same, all of us also at this point kind of realizing that, things are tough. And I really love the saying that it's been starting to go around quite a lot now. When we first got into this, a lot of us are saying, oh, we're all in the same boat together, and realizing that we're not all in the same boat, but we're all in the same storm. And when we look at that, we see, I think, a picture of South Africa. We see a picture of, the real vastness between, what a country is like. We see this vastness between different socioeconomic groups and all that kind of stuff. And one of the things that happens quite often is that when what we want kind of gets infringed on, the first point of call we go to is to start grumbling and complaining. And unfortunately, I believe it's a trait that many, if not all, South Africans actually have. That we get to this point when things aren't going according to what we want, we grumble and we complain a hang of a lot. And why am I saying that? Because it ties into what Paul was sharing with the church in Philippi. You'll remember Barry yesterday spoke around having that same attitude as Christ and kind of asking ourselves, do we have that same attitude as Christ? And then, he continues in his letter, and I want to pick up on two verses from Philippians 2, and they're from verses 14 and 15. And I'm going to read them in a moment and just kind of seeing what are the truths that we can get out from that. And so they read, do everything without complaining and arguing, so that no one can criticize you. Live clean, innocent lives as children of God, shining like bright lights in a world full of crooked and perverse people. Verse 16, hold firmly to the word of life, then on the day of Christ's return, I will be proud that I did not run the race in vain, and that my work was not useless. And so we even see Paul here, and maybe we see Paul being a little bit, I don't know, arrogant or maybe even complaining, but I think Paul's really exhorting and Paul's really encouraging, Paul's really motivating the church in Philippi to be different. And when we think about that, don't complain, don't argue, don't grumble. And when we think about it, that's the quickest way to get dissension into any organization. And the church is an organization just like any other. That when there's dissension, when there's grumbling, when there's arguing, there's always this undertow of not what's like, things aren't going well. And the same thing when we think of where we are as a country at the moment, let's just be really honest for a moment. There's a lot of grumbling. There's a lot of arguing. There's a lot of undertow happening at the moment. And while we can't stop all of that, we certainly can control what we post on social media. We certainly can control what we say and what we do. Now, they may not be a very popular message for many of us out there, but we need to be really careful about how the world sees us. And what I'm trying to say is that, we've already seen churches have taken a huge knock, just because of stuff that guys have done without thinking. There were churches that still held services over Easter, and you saw pastors being arrested with whole congregations. And we've heard things like saying, oh, God is bigger than all of that. Yes, well, God is bigger than all of this. We still need to obey the laws of the land, and the laws of the land say that we cannot meet in the sense that we're always used to meeting. And that's how we've got to kind of look at different ways of doing things. And then realizing as well that things are changing so drastically that they're changing on a daily basis. And so for many of us, that puts us in this place of uncertainty, this place of actually not knowing what's going on. And sometimes we complain and grumble because of that. But I just want to bring us back to remember what Barry was saying when Paul was in jail, and we looked at chapter 1, that he uses as an opportunity. And let's continue to be doing that. Let's continue to be looking for opportunities in our little area of influence, our little sphere of influence. How can we shed hope? And when I say shed hope, because hope is contagious, is that we want to pass that hope on. We want to be so full of hope that it just kind of sheds off us, it overflows off us, and it infects people around us. And how we spreading that hope? Is it through a phone call? Is it through a WhatsApp? Is it through actually just phoning somebody up and saying, how can I pray for you? And pray for that person. And instead of getting that point where we complain and we grumble and we criticize everything, how can we be making a difference? How can we be doing it? And maybe that's a challenge for all of us this morning. It'll be really great. And this is just a quick side note. You'll know that we've now started church services online, and really encourage you to watch those. We do know that data is an issue for some people. We fully understand that. But you can always ask guys to tell you what's going on, to give a breakdown of the message, and that kind of stuff. But we would love to hear from you. So maybe this is a challenge. So why don't you WhatsApp a video of what God has been saying to you, or maybe you had the privilege of phoning somebody and saying, hey, how can I pray for you? And there and then you were able to pray for that person. Just please be sensitive to maybe what you share, because obviously we don't want to, make anybody feel awkward or anything like that. But already there's been some amazing things where somebody was just saying, hey, he needed help with something, and asked a couple of guys just to pray for him. And, we started rallying around saying, hey, what can we do? Eventually, phone, say like, hey, how can we help you practically? And it's like, you know what? God has already provided. And there's some amazing stories coming out there. And really want to encourage you, how do we hear those stories? Because I believe when we hear those stories, that we continue to share hope with each other. And why do we want to do that? And that comes down to what verse 15 says. Live clean, innocent lives as children of God, shining like bright lights in a world full of crooked and perverse people. And so when we think about it, all it takes is for one little light to shine in a place that's dark to bring about change. And so one of my most favorite quotes of all time has to be attributed to a man by the name of Edmund Burke. And he said, the only way for evil to triumph is if good men do nothing. So when you think about that, if we take a little candle and you light it and you place it up high, you can see that light for miles and miles around you. And not only that, that little light enables other people to see. And when other people start shining their light, it adds to that light. And so, again, as a challenge to all of us, let's not be a people that grumble. Let's not be a people that complain. Let's rather be a people that shine our little lights. And so it reminds me, and I'm sure we've all sung this song when we were kids at a kids' church, and maybe if you weren't kids' church, maybe it's the first time you're hearing it. If it is, I'd encourage you, go and Google it, really cool song. But it's this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. Every day, every day, every day, I am going to let it shine. And so for me, that comes down to a clear a clear decision that we need to make, that every day we are going to let our little light shine. Instead of complaining and grumbling and murmuring about where we find ourselves in, let's continue to let our little light shine. And yes, while we know that things are different, that things have changed from what we perceived as normal. Now is the time to let our light shine. Now is the time to be the salt and the light that the world so desperately needs. Instead of complaining how crooked and corrupt people are, let our light shine in a godly manner. And so I want to challenge you that with this morning. How are you letting your light shine at this moment? Or maybe before we even get there, how are you letting your light shine? Are you shining your light? Or do you find yourself just grumbling and complaining? Sorry about that, I got a bit tongue tied. And for me, the foundation of all of this is what it says just before this in verses 12, where it says, work hard to show the results of your salvation, obeying God with deep reverence and fear. And so I know my translation says slightly different, but maybe it as this. Work hard, work out your salvation with fear and trembling. Because when we do that, we realize that we have a salvation. We have this joy that is contagious, this joy that is worth sharing. And do you realize that you have that joy? Or is your version of what your joy is something you don't believe is sharing? Because then you're not going to want your light to shine. But that aside, are you complaining, arguing, and grumbling? Or are you letting your light shine this morning? Thank you so much. We'd love to hear from you and hope you have a blessed day. Look forward to hearing from you guys tomorrow. Thank you so much. Have an awesome day. Bye.